Other names and directors are present. Head, Department of Forestry and Wildlife Management. Invited guests, members of the university community. Professor Omotola, Abiola, Jayeola. It is with great honor and privilege that I welcome you all to the 93rd edition of the Inaugural Lectures of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. The resume of the 93rd Inaugural Lecture. The Inaugural Lecture of today, Professor Omotola Jayeola, 1971 in Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. He attended St. Paul's Anglican Church Primary School, Ojedeji, Ijayi High School, Jayeola, and the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Oyo State, for first, second, and doctorate degrees in Forestry and Wildlife Management. Professor Jayeola had his Bachelor of Forestry and Wildlife Management degree, second class upper division in 1999, and specializes in wildlife ecology and biodiversity conservation during his master's and PhD studies in 2004 and 2010, respectively. His work experience. Professor Jayeola started his career as academic in one of the training arms of the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria at the Federal College of Wildlife Management, New Busa, Niger State, as assistant lecturer in the year 2001. At the Federal College of Wildlife Management, he was the student welfare officer, coordinator of the vocation program, and also coordinator of the student field practical and the desk officer of the Global Environment Facility Project. He joined the Federal University of Agriculture in the year 2005 as lecturer 2 and rose through the ranks, promoted to the position of Professor of Wildlife Ecology and Biodiversity Conservation in 2017. Since then, he has been working conscientiously and actively participating in teaching at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, conducting research alongside his colleagues, and involving in administration. His research interests include animal ecology, ecosystem management, and biodiversity conservation. His administrative and community service. Professor Jayeola has served the university in various capacities, and these include, among others, the following: Director, FUNAAB for 4 years. University Senate, College Board and Board of Studies, Departmental Postgraduate Coordinator for 3 years. He has served various committees in the university, among which are member of the Intellectual Property Line Policy Committee, member, Strategic Planning Committee, 2021 to 2025 Strategic Plan, member, Committee on the Establishment of the Zoological Garden, member, Mock Accreditation Team to Department of Bio and Applied Zoology, and so on. He has participated in the National Universities Commission community service and international engagements. Professor Jayeola was given an award of excellence as a winner of student essay competition during the 11th World Forestry Congress organized by the government of the Republic of Turkey and Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) of the United Nations in 1997. He was also a recipient of the Award of International Recognition by the University of Agriculture of Abeokuta during the 10th year anniversary of the university in 1998. Professor Omotola was a member of the team that worked on the cross-border movement of black fly Ceremonial complex and its implication on sarcoidosis control between Nigeria and Benin Republic. This project was sponsored through a grant to a World Health Organization and African Program on Sarcoidosis Control. He served as the principal investigator in the studies on cultural practices and local level use of biodiversity resources in and around Gashaka-Kuti National Park, Taraba State, a project sponsored by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization (UNESCO) and the Federal Ministry of Environment Abuja. He has equally served as the Development Impact Coordinator for the grass matter farming and production Oxford project through Sweet Potato Agro Skill Model in Ogun State, sponsored by African Enterprise Challenge Fund (ASEC). Professor Jayeola has participated in a number of development studies in Nigeria, some of which are strategic and baseline studies and survey of heritage watershed in Ogun State, Project 2 of the World Bank through Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, needs assessment of tertiary institutions in the Northeast Geopolitical Zone as training providers for public services in Nigeria by the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, environmental impact assessment of oil and plantation development within the buffer zone of Okomu National Park by the Okomu Edo State, end of project evaluation of Rural Society for Protection of Birds and Nigeria Conservation Foundation in Ngariaki and Buru Participatory Forest Management Project in Taraba State. He was lead consultant to a team that produced a management plan of Gashaka-Kuti National Park, Taraba State, and the Nigeria National Park Service in Abuja. A round of applause for him for all the services to the nation and international community. His study on ecology and biodiversity conservation of Nigerian forests and wildlife resources has taken him to almost all the protected areas in this country. He was a long-time UNESCO consultant on alternative source of livelihood for first-line communities around the national park. The work he did for the Environment Conquest Consult, Food and Agricultural Organization, as well as the of the United Nations, has taken him to towns and cities in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Benin Republic, and Togo. He was at the time the Secretary and President, as you now, the recording partner of ABK Golden Profile Limited and Investment Club, and Chairman Ereke Ojoba Community Development Association, Abeokuta, Ogun State. It's a community member. Professor Jayeola is a member of professional societies, which include the Wildlife Society of Nigeria, which he actually co-founded and became the Foundation National Secretary and later Vice President. Secondly, National Association of Zoos and Wildlife Parks, where he was also the National Assistant Secretary, the Commonwealth Forestry Association, Nigeria Chapter, and Animal Welfare Institute of the United States of America. Professor Jayeola has impacted positively and contributed to the career development of several students and graduates of wildlife management from the Federal Agriculture, Abeokuta, Federal College of Wildlife Management, New Busa, Federal University, Katsina State, Osun State University, Ejigbo Campus, and Olabisi Onabanjo University at Abeokuta, as well as other institutions such as University of Ibadan, Federal University of Technology Akure, Pan-African University, and so on and so forth, where he served as examiner. Publications and postgraduate education. Professor Jayeola has more than 50 scientific journal publications in both local and international journals, more than 15 articles in edited conference proceedings, and 10 technical notes. He has supervised more than 80 students at ordinary national diploma, higher national diploma, as well as undergraduate bachelor degree projects. He has, together with other colleagues, produced 16 master's dissertations, either as major or co-supervisor, and 8 doctoral theses. And please note this: Professor Jayeola loves watching nature movies, wilderness experiences, and farming. He's married to his half-love, Mrs. Omotola Jayeola, and the marriage is blessed with children. At this juncture, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite Professor Omotola Jayeola to present the 93rd Inaugural Lecture titled Strategy of Consumption and Conservation, the Paradox of Community Emancipation. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development and Academics, the Registrar, Bossa, University Librarian, the Dean, College of Environmental Resources Management, Deans of other colleges, postgraduate schools and student affairs, Directors of institutes, centers and units, Head Departments of Forestry and Wildlife Management, Head of other departments, members of the University Senate, distinguished academics, and professional colleagues of FUNAAB and other universities, all non-teaching staffs, my academic mentors, my lords, spiritual and temporal, friends of the university and special guests, members of my immediate and extended family. Great abundance! It is with a deep sense of gratitude to God and utmost sense of humility that I stand before you this afternoon to present the 93rd Inaugural Lecture of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, entitled The Tragedy of Consumption and Conservation, a Paradox. The Inaugural Lecture from the College of Environmental Resources Management is the 6th from the Department of Forestry and Wildlife Management from the Wildlife Management Unit. From FUNAAB alumnus within the university, and the first from an alumnus of the Department of Forestry and in the house of God, your philosopher, and Mama Fisher Ajito, a teacher under the Anglican Missionary Society. I became very simply early in life, and the hope of my survival was almost lost. I was handed over to my maternal grandmother, Mama Jayeola Taiwo at the village, to nurture, and thanks be to God, the baby survived. That's why I always refer to my journey into the forest started earlier than when I became commissioners and commissions. In 1977, to start another life with my grandmother, and I was alone and never. A lot has happened since the of man on earth. God created man to superintend over other creatures and to have dominion over them. And at the fall of man, God pronounced these words and ordered man to labor before he reaps or enjoy. In order to circumvent the cause, man began to exert pressure on the resources that were created to balance the ecosystem due to unending increase in human population, which sometimes double the rate of increase in finite natural resources. Therefore, for man to save himself, effort has to be made to slow down all of these processes, since it has been said that when the last tree dies, the last man dies. Wildlife resources of the environment were once abundantly distributed all over the country. Unregulated hunting and persecutions of certain species created a lot of pressure on their population. It is a fact that only plants and animals that have ever existed in an area can have a local name. The proof of occurrence and the existence of some outstanding animal, which within the community is the availability of the local of vernacular name for such animal. But as modernity extends, original names and identity of these resources are fading. There are a lot of mismatch in animal names, which it makes the proof of their existence based on their local indigenous name in our community doubtful. For example, many people refer to Ekun as tiger. What an error. Whereas, there is no tiger in Africa, but there is availability of a local name Ekun for an animal that has existed before, but probably it has become extinct. It means the African allies of tiger, which are either cheetah or leopard, is the one being mismatched as tiger. Another species with a local appellation related and linked to Ekun is Amotekun, which is still available and confirmed in Nigeria forest and woodland savanna ranges as leopard. Thus, the name Ekun and Amotekun must be for cheetah and leopard because tiger belongs to the Asian continent and not Africa. The difference between these two is the shape of the spots in their body and head. And if the name Amotekun clearly indicates leopard, then it goes to say that the other allies, which is cheetah, is the Ekun. Another animal commonly mismatched by name is monitor lizard. We refer to it as anta, haranta, alegba, or awoniwon. People mistakenly refer to them as alligator, and there is no vernacular name for alligator. Even by the elites, and many of us in life sciences, we made this mistake. By the natural history of this animal, an alligator is to America what crocodile is to Africa. Monitor lizard is a lower reptile, but not in the group of crocodile to which alligator belong. These are other group of animals who we have local name for. We have igu as idi, grand hornbill as a kalamagbo, red-tailed hawk as a sakonko, iro or akiti as chimpanzee, cross-river gorilla as sinaki or elegbede, giraffe as a gufon or agbanrere, advert as a fereboju, and rock hyrax as ijakuma.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in the last 23 years, when I formally got recruited as an academic at the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria and Federal College of Wildlife Management, until this moment, I've been working tirelessly to make sure that there is a balance between the need to eat and conserve. Consumption and conservation have always been an unresolved conflict in African climes. The two concepts is important in the hierarchy of needs of man, but until we recognize the need for the two to coexist and symbiotically relate with one another, there will always be a crisis of survival for man. Consumption has to do with what we will eat. It involves the activities surrounding the gathering and production of food, cloth, and cover through utilization of several natural and synthetic fiber for man. Consumption concerns itself with utilization without restriction. The continuous usage of natural products and fiber tends to bring about extinction. To prevent the above scenario, there is the need for conservation. Conservation deals with rational utilization of natural and synthetic products in such a way that it will not get exhausted, but shall be continually available for the benefit and generation yet unborn. The ultimate aim of conservation is to prevent extinction. This becomes inevitable in order to secure the continuous existence of man and ensure that supply do not cease for man to survive. The effect of these actions are now spitting on our faces, hence we recognize the need to preserve rather than the need to continue to consume. Part of the spillover, or rather the life-threatening, terminative, and burgeoning effect of production processes without recourse to conservation has been to the different effect of climate change, resulting in unpredicted weather for farming, outbreak of disease of epidemiological dimension, loss of biodiversity, low level of human immune system, various forms of ecological disaster, food shortage from break in production cycle. Recognizing the need to salvage our existential threats have been made globally to collectively take actions to remedy the malady. In 1992, there was a conference on environment at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. From this conference, the Convention on Biodiversity was drafted. Nigeria was over 150 countries that signed that convention, and there have been several World Forestry Congresses, World Park Congresses, several conferences of party. The last one proposes the Net Zero Nature Positive project being piloted and driven by global environmental facilities. In Nigeria, several policies and interventions have been put in place. Some of such are of particular importance to wildlife conservation. Generally speaking, the Nigerian National Forest Policy of 1988, reviewed in 2006 and in 2020, is the main instrument of forestry and wildlife governance in Nigeria. Furthermore, Endangered Species Act 2016 provides for the conservation and management of Nigeria wildlife and the protection of some of our species in danger of extinction as a result of over-exploitation on habitat change. These instruments enable federal government to enforce the law and implement guidelines and policies on international trade in plants and animal species. The rate of deforestation and land degradation in Nigeria is one of the highest in the world, which averaged 3.5% annually. Between 1980 and 1990, forest area declined from 14.9 million hectares to 10.1 million hectares. It has further declined to about 6.5% of the total land area now. The impact of numerous and severe. They include loss of biodiversity and all that we have mentioned earlier on. Agriculture is one of the major drivers of deforestation and forest land degradation. More than 20 million people practice shifting cultivation due to poor access to improved farming tools, inputs, and technology. As cultivated lands are depleted of nutrients, farmers turn to forested land, including forest reserve, for farming. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, biodiversity has been described as the variety and variability among living organisms and the ecological complexes in which they occur. These include genetic resources, organism or its parts, population or any other biotic component of ecosystem, with actual or potential use or value for humanity. They represent indispensable resource endowment, such as the food that is eaten, the fuel with which the food is cooked, and the product that sustain livelihood and generate wealth. Over time, as the conservation ethic grew, concerns to set aside land for protection of endangered species and habitats crept to Africa. But local people remain marginalized in the conservation efforts across the continent. What a tragedy. The creation of national parks has always tallied with exclusion of rural dwellers from traditional grazing and access to farmland in the interest of protecting wildlife and natural habitat. Conflict normally arose as a result of opposition by local people, which many times have led to collateral damages of life and properties. Thus, the call for community emancipation by creating and engendering new conservation strategy that will incorporate local people's value, knowledge system and priorities, involve them in the management and use of biological resources, control or reverse the loss of biodiversity, and treat conservation and economic development as integral aspects of sustainable development. To a far greater extent, local people depend on biological resources for subsistence and commercial agriculture, livestock production, logging and fisheries, which account for the bulk of their employment and economic earning. Mr. Vice Chancellor, one of the tragedies of biodiversity conservation is hunting. But let me put it straight here. Hunting is not just the act of killing, persecuting, or being wicked to wildlife. No, it's a way of life that is extremely difficult to sever from humanity. It's a profession that has its root in creation. The practice cannot be divorced from human existence. Hunting is more than a pursuit. It's a thread connecting us to our past, our land, and our shared humanity. Whether we are hunting for food, sports, or cultural significance, we must always remember that we are stewards of the land and its wildlife, and that we have a responsibility to conduct ourselves in a manner that respects and protects the natural environment. In modern times, huntings have evolved, but our efforts have been made to balance tradition with conservation. Sustainable practices are crucial to preserving Nigeria's diverse wildlife. By understanding the history of hunting, we can contribute to its responsible continuation. By working together to promote responsible and sustainable hunting practices, we can help to ensure that hunting remains a vital and important part of our relationship with the natural world for generations to come. Another traditional practices that aim at continuous existence of man is farming. For too long, agriculture and the environment have been at odds against each other over biodiversity. Agriculture is cast as homogenization agent on the landscape, obliterating biodiversity to make room for crops and livestock. Some agricultural practices trigger heavy negative impact on biodiversity. It has caused harm to the environment, but it is the key to saving biodiversity and farming practices to minimize environmental damage. Without biodiversity, agriculture cannot progress. And without agriculture, biodiversity cannot be ensured. Without improved agriculture, most of the remaining habitats for wildlife will be destroyed to make room for farms, plantations, and ranches. Biodiversity is much more than the preservations of the habitats for unique and interesting plants and animals. People in the rural and urban area must be intimately and actively involved in using biodiversity to supply their needs. Both indigenous knowledge and scientific researches are needed to meet the challenges of intensifying agriculture in an environment-friendly manner. My contribution to knowledge. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, my humble contribution focused on wildlife ecology and biodiversity conservation as an assurance of food security. Wildlife in this context is the totality of plants and animals found living freely in an environment. This ranges from microfauna and flora to the highest vertebrates and trees in our surroundings. Our emphasis was on Nigerian species across every ecological zone. The thrust of our contribution hinged on three main areas, which are wildlife ecology, domestication processes, and biodiversity conservation. In all of this, the need to create a balance between the needs of humans in terms of food, fiber, and shelter, as well as the importance of living in a sustainably managed, resource-rich environment that guarantees local, national, and global community development was the target. Distribution and abundance of wildlife in FUNAAB. The much-needed understanding of ecosystem interaction and relationship between several components with the attendant exploration mechanism for sustainably for management was the basis of series of studies we conducted. Plant, animal, and animal of the same environment were considered. Different environmental and human-induced factors that aid or negate the survival of this animal were examined. Genuinely, man does not intend to hurt his environment, but the inevitability of the environment to pave way for food production bring about the antagonistic productivity crisis. For instance, the history of land use in the 9,700 hectare FUNAAB land area has been mainly extractive through extensive deforestation, indiscriminate wildlife exploitation, quarrying, cattle grazing, and slash and burn agriculture. From another call 2000, we observed that grass cutter accounts for 43% of the total game species encountered, while 12 others, including Xerus erythropus, Crassidomus gambianus, and Maxwell dicas, jointly account for 45%. The trended canonical correspondence analysis was used to examine the plant and animal interaction in Figure 1. The direction of each arrow indicates the position of optimum abundance in relation to the plant. It also indicates most preferred plant species by the animal, hence the preferred habitat and niche. The byplots of animal species and plot indicates a pattern established in the position of plots. This pattern supports the earlier results of the similarity indices with continuous gradients was established. From figure 1, it can be inferred that mammals occupy similar niche where Albizia virgini, Ficus capensis, Astonia bunei, Blyhair sapida, Daspirus messipipomis, and some other trees were found. The same interpretation applies to quadrants 2 to 4. Further animal habitat relationship was explored in figure 2, where the plots with very strong close relationship to specific animal were grouped and arranged very close to one another. Diversity and distribution of wildlife in plantations and secondary growth. Attentions have been shifted away from managing plantation alone for timber, rather than and focus to the management of the entire system, because silvicultural practices like plantation development, clear felling of natural forests have the tendency to alter habitat and consequently drive many species to extinction. And in the process of doing this, to satisfy man-made forests are created. The possibility of maintaining wildlife diversity while access to timber, fiber, and other timber products is not jeopardized was studied by Jayeola et al. In 2005. And in a 15-year-old mixed plantation of teak and melina and an adjoining natural secondary regrowth in FUNAAB sites. 35 species of wildlife were encountered in the plantation and adjoining forest. 16 species of animals were found common to the two sites, while 8 and 10 species were restricted to the natural forest and plantation respectively. 27 species were found in the plantation, while the adjoining natural forest harbors 25 species. Species population estimate in the forest is significantly higher in 6 species: Maxwell duiker, grass cutter, Nile rat, giant rat, guinea fowl, and tree squirrel, while it was higher only in 3 species in natural forest plantation. They are bronze manakins, ground squirrel, and bush fowls. Vertebrates dominate both environments. Lower proportion of reptiles were noticed in the area. The result clearly demonstrates the ability of the plantation to support as much wildlife as the secondary natural forest could do. More credence to this assertion is that the site diversity in plantation is significantly higher than that of the forest. The results were achievable probably because of the policy of sustainable forest management adopted in the plantations. Livelihood activities of first-line communities in Gashaka. In another study by Jayeola et al. 2007, efforts were made to create a balance between biodiversity conservation and sustainable livelihood of the first-line community of protected area. Populations of the residents in each villages resonate between 500 and 2,000. Farming brings the highest income as the main primary source. Other secondary or minor income is still from farming of arable crops and livestock. Biodiversity resources are valued and used as assurance for food security, household energy supply, medicine, tools, and local technology. Sizable population uses the resources found within the park core and the buffer zone for subsistence. Greater percentage practice beekeeping or honey hunting, followed by collections and processing of locust bean seed and medicinal plants. Specific resources that are seriously exploited are Brachystegia euricoma, Vitellaria paradoxa, and Belix media mani. Equal number and percentage of sample populations use the bark of the tree, leaves, and its seeds. Estimate of average annual income per household reflects that medicinal plant generates the highest rate of return, followed by Brachystegia, while the least come from Pachyia. Their knowledge about medicinal value of those trees is outstanding. Anogesos are widely utilized, followed by Vitellaria paradoxa, Nuclear latifolia, Kaya senegalensis, and the least is Ceiba petandra, Poliostigma reticulatus, and some other one. The study sufficiently revealed people's consciousness of the park status. Their knowledge of values and uses of available resources was acknowledged. From the foregoing, we propose that people's knowledge and skills to be improved through special training. We need to establish alternative production sources like community woodlot or permanent plantations. National Park may consider allowing people to collect some non-timber forest products like fruits and seeds at the buffer of the park under close monitoring and observation by the rangers. One important livelihood activities in around a protected area is honey hunting by harvesting of wild case of honeybees in hole and crevices of trees and rocks in the wild. Local hive for bee husbandry involve the use of weaved rattan in a conical form lined internally by cow dung paste, hanged on tree, colonized by bee. We engaged in a study to ascertain the impact of plant diversity on quality of honey produced in 2009. 17 trees colonized by bees within the wildlife colleges were identified and monitored. A plot each was established around the colonized tree, such that the tree is in the center of the plot. Flowering plants found within the plot were identified and their relative dominance were noted. 32 tree species were identified around the hives. The Therium microcarpum, Acacia biglobosa, Anogesus leucarpus, Teculia setigera, acacia species, and greyware moles were the dominant ones. The measures of heterogeneity, which may invariably be responsible for differences in quality of honey harvested, in each plot indicated that plot 7, 14, 9, 15, 12, and 13 varied numerically in plant population, but there were no significant differences between their diversity. Chemical properties of honey harvested indicated that the hive 17, which is on Tamarindus indica, seems to be the richest considering all the analyzed nutrients, except carbohydrate. Despite the numerical differences, there was no significant difference in total quality of the honey from all the harvested hives. It is suspected that non-significant differences in quality of honey may be as a result of greater similarities in vegetation composition between hives location, which makes it homogeneous when utilization by bee is considered. Impacts of human encroachment on wildlife abundance and distribution. Effect of human interference on distribution of wildlife species as a response to human disturbance was studied within the site occupied by FUNAAB, where man has encroached for a development to ascertain whether there has been a shift in the abundance and distribution pattern of wild animal as a result of infrastructural developmental activities. Transects were purposively laid around project site. The site was divided into four gradients, 500 to 1,500 meters each. This was done in order to ascertain if there are significant variation in distribution of wildlife along the gradient as a result of human interference on the environment. Each transect was later traversed on foot once every month for a period of 1 year. The highest populations of animal found within the quadrant C, followed by D in the dry season, though the difference between the quadrants are not very distinctive, and the trend was repeated in wet season, but with a tie between quadrants D and A, whereby the number of transects where the highest number of species were encountered are equal. One, there was no significant difference in animal species distribution between quadrant A and B, but there was between A and C, as well as between A and D. The result of the magnitude of species richness along transect division implies that area of intensive use have lower number of animal species, especially during the dry season when human activities are well noticed. The result as displayed by A, B, and C is an indication that human activities actually affect the distribution of the animal. This study further confirmed that season plays a lot of roles in survival and behavior of animal. The animal moves away from human habitations during the dry season when they can be easily exposed to persecution. Moreover, food is always scarce at the periphery of the forest at this time. Domestication process. On waste to wealth, we have worked on cobble species, grass cutter, guinea fowl, and giant African land snail. The study on use of household waste as food supplement in snail farming was reported in Simon et al. 2003. Snails were able to consume 59.4% of the consumable household waste fed to them during the experiment. They were also found to experience significant weight gain and morphometric indices. It was concluded that snail rearing can reduce pollution, often caused by household waste, and invariably provide good sanitary effect, proper disposal of household waste, and better economic return. Ogujimi et al. In 2008 looked into sociocultural factors determining consumption and utilization of snails among 13 ethnic groups in Niger State. The study concluded that 55% eat snail regularly, alluding to the usefulness of the animal for a lot of therapeutics. It was confirmed that personal dislikes, rather than cultural or religious beliefs and taboos, are the major factor for non-consumption of snail. Physiological studies that tend to aid our understanding of the snail husbandry under captive breeding environment was conducted. Significant groundbreaking results were recorded in several studies by Ademolu et al. 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, until 2023. Studies on grass cutter domestication with trials have been ongoing. in different centers and institutes in West Africa, and in Nigeria with FUNAAB as one of the pace setters. One limitation to the success of the various trials is the fragile nature of the animal. There are frequent expressions of fright and difficulties in getting the animal habituated under captive condition makes handling the animal for weighing during experimentation almost impossible. To solve this problem, it was thought that any method of determining the weight without necessarily struggling with the animal will go a long way to solve the problem. So we engaged in study on the predictions of body weight from body measurements in grass cutter in 2009. 8 morphometric indices of 78 grass cutters were subjected to simple linear regression and correlation analysis. The total body weight was regressed against all other 7 indices using the model y equals to a plus bx, where y is the body weight, a is the intercept, and b is the regression coefficient associated with other linear body measurement of x. The regression coefficient of determination R square was calculated to know the degree of association between the body weight and other linear body measurements. The results reveal that head length gave the highest coefficient of determination. There is a significant association between all other body weights and the linear body measurements. It shows that all indices can describe the body weight, but not at the same degree. Head length appears as the highest single predictor variable for body weight in cane rat, followed by body length from the model. It can be established that the numerical value of the body weight is approximately equal to a quarter of the value of the head length in centimeter. We say BW in kilogram is equal to HL divided by 4 in centimeter. Response rate of guinea fowl to egg collections and other aspects of its in-situ ecology was studied by Jayeola et al. 2007, Yusuf et al. 2020, and Yusuf et al. 2021 in Kanji Lake Basin. We identified 10 breeding nests and marked them serially. And the nests were randomly assigned to 5 treatments with 2 nests per treatment. The nests were left undisturbed but carefully monitored for 8 weeks. The eggs were then collected in the following order: 100% up to 0, and monitored for further 4 weeks before hatchability trial. In this experiment, the number of egg lays per nest kept increasing as the season advanced. And even though the increase was not significant between breeding nests, but actually significant between weeks. The current status of cobs in Nigeria. One of the remaining medium-sized ungulates, the kobu species, whose docile nature has predisposed them to serious perturbations, had resulted in their status changing drastically and tending towards rarity, was studied and reported in Jayeola et al. 2012 to ascertain the real situations. Officials and residents of the villages or enclaves of Kanji Lake, Gashaka Gunti, and Old Oyo National Park, where cobs still exist, were interviewed to elicit possible reasons for their current status. These are the maps of the protected area. The figure 9 is the map of the protected area where cob had existed before. You can see we are there in Gashaka Gunti, they are there in Pandan Wildlife Park, Jos Wildlife Park, Lamebura, Keambana, Kamuku, Wase Game Sanctuary, Old Oyo, Ebakampe, Okomu, and Kanji Lake. But today, we are sure that we can find them only in Gashaka, that is Cobb, Gashaka, Old Oyo, and Kanji Lake. Analysis of hunters' return to bushmeat depot. Submissions of game harvested to bushmeat landing depots in southwestern Nigeria per unit hunting time was studied for 1 year by Jayeola et al. In 2023. Olomore, Killer, and Oduana Kekere in Ogun and Oyo State. 21 species of vertebrates in the class Mammalia, reptiles, and birds were returned to the 3 depots by hunters during the study. Olomore had the highest rate of return, and the least was returned to Killer, both in Ogun State. Grasscutter had the highest populations of animal, and followed by Maxwell Dikers and some other grades. The least hunters returns are black cobra, Bosman Poto, with a mean value of 0.33 and 0.67 respectively. The study shows that more games are usually harvested during the wet season cumulatively. In the month of May, November, and June, we had the highest in Olomore, Killer, and Oduana Kekere respectively, meaning that 2 of the 3 locations had their highest monthly return during the wet season. In the months that fell within the dry season, the 3 locations experienced the least supply of the game in January. Taxonomic details and IUCN status of wildlife species returned to the 3 locations shows that pangolin and Bosman poto, listed as critically endangered, are freely traded in those areas. Biodiversity conservation efforts. Training of farmers, NGO and CBO in grass cutter farming. In order to create a larger cream of players in grass cutter domestication, we organized a series of training for homestead farmers and other stakeholders interested in grass cutter and snail rearing. In fact, I represented Professor Onodeko in so many of these seminar series. For a seamless supplies of feed to grass cutter farmers, funding was secured from African Enterprise Challenge Fund to pilot a development impact program for a 6-year production upscale of sweet potato outgrower scheme as secure source of energy for grass cutter feeds in Oluwafemi Owode and other local government areas. The scheme guarantees secure market for sweet potato as energy source for grass cutter farms, thereby assuring an acceptable rate of returns and provide employment for the beneficiary outgrower farmers, improve incomes and food security among the rural household. 16,000 rural farmers, 60% of who are women, were recruited through consultations, and we were able to secure long-term employment for them and income and food security. Cross-border movement of black fly to between Nigeria and Benin Republic. I participated as a wildlife ecologist in a World Health Organization African program on onchocerciasis control project on the cross-border movement of black fly between Benin Republic and Nigeria. This is one project that aided my understandings of zoo geography, healthcare delivery needs of the rural populace, and its resultant effects on food safety and security. The project was able to lay to rest the confusion about the endemicity of the blinding strains of onchocerciasis, especially in southern Nigeria. The report was in Samwobo et al. 2012 and 2013. To avoid conflict between biodiversity conservation and sustainable industrial development, I participated in a number of environmental impact assessments. Okomu Oil Extension Project, King Line Power Plant Project at Ore, Southport Cement Exploration Site at Elere Adubi, Oluwa Forest Critical Habitat Assessment, BirdLife International End of Project Evaluation at Buru and Gayaki Participatory Forest Management Project in Gashaka, in Taraba State. The report of these assignments were in Jayeola 2009-2010. Alternative source of livelihood for first-line communities around protected area. The result of the UNESCO-funded studies mentioned earlier around Gashaka and Gashaka National Park led to the development of training manual. The development of a training manual on alternative livelihood practices around protected area. A training the trainer workshop was then organized for the National Park Extension Officer by Jayeola 2007. During the Fadama 2 project, vegetable farming communities around Ogun River floodplain in Oluwafemi Owode were selected for intervention. Biodiversity inventory of the area shows that the area is still rich in wildlife and hunting is unregulated. Critically endangered Sitatonga specky and some other rare aquatic mammals are also abundant in the area. The community forest that borders Lishabi Forest at Ajade Ogundipe, Eriti, another community were recommended for protection. Designation processes was funded and a management plan was developed for the forest. The community agrees to the terms of the plan and an agreement reached with the stakeholders to have Eriti watershed community forest managed by the community volunteers in Jayeola 2009. FUNAAB Zoo Park. Professor Eniku Omenyi appointed me as an acting director of FUNAAB Zoo Park. The appointment was renewed by Professor Salako. During the period that I served in the park, I give God the glory that we were able to do our best and raise the bar of excellence in that zoo park to the extent that the staff gave me an appellation of Director of Multiplication because we were experiencing good outcomes of most of the steps we were taking, resulting in series of birth and recruitment among our inmates. Sir, thank you for the support, sir. I did not find the terrain difficult to trudge because Professor Onodeko, as the trailblazer, carried me along so much. Net Zero Nature Positive Biodiversity Conservation Accelerator Project in the Rivers and Bayelsa State. Recently, I was invited to participate in a United Nations Development Project proposal grant activities on Net Zero Nature Positive Biodiversity Conservation Accelerator Project in Rivers and Bayelsa State. This was one of the outcomes of the Conference of Party number 28. I did my best to make sure that our team on biodiversity conservation and ecosystem restorations did not fail to deliver on our mandate. I thank all the project teams and partners for exposing me to all those new areas of research, especially Dr. Okeyonyi, present here today. Human resources and capacity development in wildlife management. God has helped me to contribute to human resources production and development to enhance the growth of forestry and wildlife as a vocation in Nigeria. At New Busa, I serve as the coordinator of the vocational training program, training game guards and rangers. Many of such trainees are doing well in managing protected areas in different states of the Federation. I have supervised many national and higher national diplomas in wildlife and ecotourism management. Many of those diplomates are also doing well as manager of protected area. One of them is Alhaji Mohammed Ladan, currently serving as the general manager of Yankari Game Reserves in Bauchi State. Several others are serving with the National Park Service, Ministry of Agriculture, Tourism, Education and Environment, as well as higher institutions of learning as superintendents and field officers today. I have in the last 19 years of my service in Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, supervised several undergraduate and postgraduate candidates. They are all over in the business world, government ministries, educational institutions. Among several students that has passed through me is the acting dean of postgraduate school, Olusegun Agagu, University of Science and Technology, Dr. Johnson Ogunjobi. Others are in the national parks, ministries, friends, and in diaspora. On a final note, Mr. Vice Chancellor, FUNAAB that we know today was established in 1988 and has undergone several transformations. Sir, during this transformation until date, the university has been known by all and sundry, even across nations, as citadel of excellence. What has been sustaining the excellence is the ideals of honesty, integrity, objectivity, and fairness to all by the leaders that the institution has been blessed with. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I can see your passion to toe the lines of our founding fathers, and I pray that God will help you to sail smoothly to the end. For us as lecturers and researchers, I implore us all to cooperate with the university administration by upholding these virtues of excellence in all that we do. I have observed and adopted all these traits and their lessons in all my activities to get to this point in academics. I therefore urge every one of us, be it academics and non-teaching staff, to continue to strive to raise the bars of excellence that FUNAAB is noted by adhering to the principle of honesty, integrity, objectivity, and fairness in all that we do. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all join hands together to build a more resilient institution for knowledge that really develops. Let us see the university as a legacy that all of us will have to bequeath to future generations. In conclusion, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, through the result of our research works and several community services rendered, presented at this 93rd Inaugural Lecture, I have contributed gainfully and provided adaptable solutions to various stakeholders in conservation, either as policymakers, practitioners, and managers, as well as those whose resources for livelihood depend mainly on the resources around national parks or equivalent protected area. It has been proved that several resources of natural environment can be of immense benefit to man, enhance him, and emancipate him from the shackles of poverty and assure his security if managed sustainably. Unless we strive to conserve our environment resources as exemplified in the Sustainable Development Goals number 2, 3, 6, 12, 13, and 15, it may become extremely difficult to continue to consume without consequences. The following recommendations, sir, if adopted, will ensure and improve conservation of flora and fauna resources, guarantee sustainable consumption, and ensure community emancipation. For institutions like FUNAAB and other land-grant universities, we have the need to have a well-thought-out land use planning and map that will show a clear-cut demarcation between areas of intensive use, such as agriculture, plantation, etc., and that of academic structures. Since grass cutter forms the dominant and abundant group of animals in almost all the examined ranges, public and private institutions and corporate stakeholders are hereby encouraged to formalize a program for capture and breeding, for domestication, and transmit the technology to farmers, hunters, villagers, and public who have flair for bushmeat consumption. There's the need for concerted effort by government in terms of adequate legislation, policy framework, and enforcement of law that will sever the log jams created by Land Use Act and several other policies that refuse to recognize the distinctions on land administration between authorities and the landowner. Government should allow national legislation to outlaw open grazing and encourage or strengthen investment in ranching. Insert into the rules of engagement the need for wildlife ranching as a way to conserve our game and environment to ensure food security. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the importance of communities and enclaves in and around protected area cannot be overemphasized. If we actually want to achieve meaningful success in conservation, every effort to secure the trust of local people and their cooperation is the first step in the right direction. All the intervention agencies need to redirect their actions to activities that will encourage the rural dwellers to support conservation, especially within the protected area catchment, while efforts in food production is not derailed. Heritage community forest management model is hereby recommended. In order to help government agencies involved in conservation to deliver on their mandate, there is the need for increased funding to train and acquire skill and equipment needed for efficient and effective delivery of their services. Government agencies involved in conservation and need to have operational and administrative synergy. Their work and operation need to be synergized for increased effective delivery. Current effort of Federal Ministry of Environment through the Federal Department of Forestry to create and coordinate interagency cooperation in the enforcement of CITES law is salutary. It is advised that this effort needs to be deepened and widened, especially within the current task force to help Nigerian National Park Service. Acknowledgements. I remember today, as always, the memory of my dear parents, late Theophilus Okonola and Jayeola Balogun, and my mama, late Mrs. Felicia Ajitoni. It was your wish and will, as well as mine, that you'll be alive to see a day like this. But God knows the best. Papa, I'm assuring you that your tenets and values that were planted in me are still alive, and I've been passing them on to my children. The tenets of godliness, hard work, humility, loyalty to authority, and uprightness in all situations is still alive in me. The teaching gained in some of the rhymes you normally recount for us are still very valid and working to shape my outlook to life and situations. Some of them are this. It says, as we surpass our father's skills, our son shall shame our own. As 1,000 sins are hidden still, and not 100 known. The other one says, my son shall live and thrive under my care, and they shall give unto my age what their childhood has received. I made mention today my maternal grandmother, who saw life when all about me pointed to death. She believed I would live, and I live. Thank God for her. Though dead, your work lives. Mama Jayeola Taiwo, I will appreciate you always. I appreciate my auntie, a surrogate mother, Mama Olufunke Akangbe, who was my guardian in Ijaya High School. With your children, I was able to see life and depict what it is to be a hard worker. Thank you, Mama. I want to greatly acknowledge the 4 giants that Almighty has planted on my way in the journey of life. At every junction of my life and my career development, each of them showed up and carried out the assignment that the Almighty has placed in their hands as destiny helper. Their appearances are in fulfillment of ordinances and divinity of destiny to establish the saying that if you want to go far, you must see far. If you must see far, you have to sit on the shoulders of giants. Providence placed me on the giant shoulders of Professor Samuel Adeniro Oluwalana, Professor Samuel Akiyele Onadeko, Professor Chiedu Felix Mafiana, and Dr. Okeyoyi Abiola Okedeji. My life and career is a story woven and built around the benevolent nature of these magnanimous mentors. I remember another great man and leaders in forestry, late Dr. Abeokuta. I came across this man in Turkey in 1997, and he told me, if you want to stay and survive as a young scientist within the community of foresters, look before you leap. Dr. Meduna was one colossus in wildlife management in Nigeria, who I shall remain grateful to. The man insisted I should be employed in free, having noticed my activities during SciWest program at New Busa, even when they told me that Oyo State quota is filled. I appreciate other friends and colleagues, Professor Anthony Adekunle Ogunjimi, Israel Oloyede Osushina, Olaide Omowumi Oyeleke, Olufunmilola Odun Ayo Akinola, and many others too numerous to mention. I came across a colleague as undergraduate and later became to meet him again in FUNAAB as my first office mate in biological sciences. Professor Kehinde Olutoyin Ademolu. He is like a broad brother to me. Thank you for accepting me into your office and agreeing to work with me. I want to appreciate my teachers, Mr. Adebayo, Mr. Adepo, Mr. Ade Akinwande at Ijayi High School, with my best friends, who doubles as the best man at my wedding, Mr. Isiaka Kehinde Adewale Adegas. Professor Adetokobo Oladoyin Adeola piqued interest in me and taught me a great deal of things on how to live and stand amid life challenges. I remember Professor Ola Adams was my co-supervisor for Masters of Wildlife Management. Late Professor Lucas Omotola Ojo and Moses Oledepo Adedire. The former took me through the rudiment of conducting research and analyzing terrestrial ecological data, while the latter made available to me his library for my first award-winning paper that took me to World Congresses, Forestry Congresses in Turkey in 1997. I want to thank my head of departments, Professor Margaret Olufunso Adedokun, and other academics and non-teaching staff in the department for providing good leadership and with love of God, carrying everyone along in the scheme of things without rancor. The love and joy that banded us together will continually remain stronger. I appreciate other fathers, brothers, and several senior colleagues, Professor Adetogun, Professor Aduradola, Professor Omoniyi, Professor Alegbeleye, Professor Agbon, Professor Adeofun, Professor Akeredolu Ale, Professor Elo Soni, Professor and Professor Mrs. Dipeolu, Professor Ina, and Professor C.O.N. Ikeobi. My other brother like Professor A.L.A. Shotuyo, Shoaga, Adekunle, Dapo Odutan, Segun Oladoye, M.K. Ogunjobi, Noah Oyebamiji, Francis Faruwa, Idayat Karim, the Ojekunles, the Yemi Adegbenjo, Ibiyomi, the Yisals, Oluwafemi Olufemi, and our young, energetic, and vibrant Taiwo Adebowale. I appreciate you all. Other professional colleagues and brothers like Dr. Adewumi, M.K. Wahab, O.A. Akishorotan, and Professors M.O. Ikpimoroti from Uni Osun, we are also appreciated. I remember today and always a very dear friend, late Dr. Gallison Jamala. May God rest his soul. I wish to thank my international friends, Megan Duffy, Isabella Fis, Fabiana Isla, Saga Gubi, and Eric Aranja for being part of my success story. I wish to acknowledge and appreciate Professor Adewumi Babatunde Idowu and his wife, who saw to it that my appointment to biological sciences was not truncated. Professor Sanwobo piloted the first World Health Organization project, which I participated with a host of others like Professor Mansuru Adeleke, who incidentally presented his own inaugural yesterday, Dr. Dele Adeyi, and Oluwole Akinola. I appreciate a host of other colleagues from the Department of Biological Sciences, Professor Ekpo, Professor Dedeke, Alade Shida, Aworinde, and current Dean of Biosciences, Professor Mrs. Iyabo Kehinde. I appreciate you all. I want to especially appreciate the camaraderie and relationship that I shared with my secondary school mates, especially the 1988 set of Ijayi High School, under the leadership of Elder Alakinde Ademola. They are here today to celebrate Sir Omo. God bless you all. Either as a student or a faculty member, I've had the opportunity of relating with all the vice chancellors that have pioneered the affairs of the university in date. Professor Adedipe admitted me. Professor Okoje did everything humanly possible to make sure I did not miss the opportunity of attending the 11th World Forestry Congress in Antalya, Turkey in 1997. Professor Israel Folorunshou employed me into the university as lecturer 2 in the Department of Biological Sciences. Professor Adamson was the AGVC during my stay in Kolnas. I had quite a lot of teaching experiences with Professor Oluwafemi Balogun and Olushola Bandele Oyewole. Professor Nico Menya appointed me as the acting director of FUNAAB ZUPAC. Professor F.K. Salako gave me a second term as the substantive director. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, our ways have crossed at various levels, but one outstanding platform where I was able to have a glimpse of your leadership traits is at the ASU UNAAB Cooperative. I appreciate you and Professor Bolanle Akeredolu Ale for the tutelage. To the charging of everyone, Professor Balogun was another vice chancellor that I admire his style of leadership after Professor Okoje, and remain grateful to God that our path also crossed. Under his vice chancellorship, I crossed effortlessly from Department of Biological Sciences to Forestry and Wildlife Management and was promoted twice during his tenure. I'm very grateful that he allows himself to be used for my potential to become manifested. He gave Professor Onodeko the permission to co-opt me into the committee that worked on the feasibility and establishment of FUNAAB SUPAC. And for members of that committee and those that were very close to us, they can bear witness that that was one project which brought out the skills of Jayeola as a wildlife scientist. I am grateful to the comrades who believe in Academic Staff Union of Universities as progressive movement for the emancipations of the downtrodden and struggling workers in the university. I've had the opportunity of learning, serving, and struggling with many of you towards the liberation of Nigerian workers. As many of you will know, Comrade Professor Adebayo is my brother from another mother. I cherish him for remaining ever steadfast and ready at all times to defend the weak ones from being persecuted. He will never keep mute in the face of unjust, unfair, and maltreatment of any member under whatever circumstances. I am equally grateful to other veterans such as Professor Kayode Bangbose, A.O. Eniku Omenyi, O.G.F. Nwogu, A.L.A. Sotuyo, A.A. Abiola, O.S. Showande, B.S. Badmus, F.I. Adeosun, and current chairman, Gbenga Adeleye. The current situation on our campus today can be attributed to the results or repercussions of whatever we did or we didn't do at certain times when we are in the saddle. God bless all of us. I'm grateful to all the wildlife scientists in Nigeria, from the executive and members of Wildlife Society of Nigeria, most especially the trustees, other fellows, immediate past and foundation president, Professor Aye Ayodele, is here seated. The current president, Professor Oyeyu Ogogo, our hardworking national secretary, Dr. Rimaye, other executives and members here present. Incidentally, they came to celebrate with me and held their National Executive Council meeting here in this university today. I appreciate all of you. My appreciation also goes to the management and staff of Nigerian National Park Service, most especially the current Conservator General, Dr. I.M. Goni, here seated. I am grateful for all that you have been doing to sustain some of us within the circle as professional colleagues, friends, and consultants to the service. God bless you, sir. I appreciate all the conservators of parks for the friendship and relationship we share as wildlife naturalists. Every other professional friends, either from national parks, Nestria, other institutes, Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, especially the Director General, Professor Z.B. Yaduma, who told me he may not be able to come, and other colleagues and friends from Federal Ministry of Environment, too numerous to mention, are greatly appreciated. To my friends and colleagues in FUNAAB Zoo Park, especially the director, both immediate past and presently under my leader and brother, Professor Sanwobo, all the curators, led earlier by Mr. Bangbose and now by Ndubuisi Emmanuel, the administrator led by Loretta Owobamiri and Mrs. Atungu, as well as the zoo accountant, Mrs. Olasteju, Mr. Madubuko, Mr. Defowora, all of whom we work together as one family. I remain ever grateful for your cooperation and tolerances. God bless all of you. I appreciate my students who submitted themselves for tutelage, in spite of whatever they think is my shortcomings. The likes of Shomoye, Olawale, Abayomi Ayepola, Olufunke Bangbose, Oyeniyi Oreoluwa, Yusuf Abdulkabir Abiodun, Olakunle Segun, and many others, too numerous to mention. I remember today and always Dr. Sitafia James and Priscilla Aver Asongo of blessed memory. May God rest their soul. I appreciate very specially my dear Akofe Yakubu Mutiu, who from being my mentee has become a dear brother, friend, and companion. I'm equally grateful to God for the blessings of a very dear brother, Dr. Adeniyi Egbetade, his wife Jibola, and our precious son Shindara. I appreciate your concerns and kind gesture to everything that has to do with me. God bless you, my brother. My darling family friends, Engineer Ibidu Nisharungbe, and his wife Mary is also appreciated. Thank you for being there. I appreciate all my siblings as well as their children. Mr. Bode Jayeola is there, Evangelist Fumi Adebayo, late Sami Jayeola, Pastor Dotun Jayeola, Mr. Sunday Dejo Mayokun, and Tolulope Jayeola, as well as Mrs. Modupe Olafakayode. Growing together within the Theophilus Okunla clan has taught me a very big lessons of life. God bless all of you. I thank God Almighty for the grace to nurture Bolutife and see him grow to become a man. My God will continually bless and guide your path in life. I thank the Almighty for his love and grace over Omowonola, our siblings, and their mother. The extended Arulogu family of Alafara Oje in Ibadan is well appreciated. I thank most especially the Magaji, here seated, Architect Kehinde Arulogun, the head of the Jayeola clan, Eda Oladele Jayeola, my big brother and cousin, Mr. Olatayo Jayeola, and his amiable wife, Dr. Olayinka Jayeola, and Mr. Olatukomi Jayeola, Mr. Olaide Jayeola, and several others that are all here. God bless all of you. I'm equally grateful to my in-laws, Baba and Mama Adetomi. Mama should be here, I know. My co-in-laws, the Ajes, Oguntayos, Adebayo, and Engineer Dr. Wale Adetomi. The bond of love between us shall remain cordial and unbroken in Jesus' name. I'm grateful to God for the Ereke Ojo Oba Community Development Association in Aregbesola area of Abeokuta. I have had the opportunity of serving this community as chairman for 9 years, and I thank Mr. Jayeola Dipo for accepting to carry on from me. I thank the Shokan Area Community Development Committee and Aregbesola Area Police Community Relationship Committee. I thank Mr. Abayomi Shofela, who carefully lured me into community activities with a phrase, thank you, sir. I appreciate the staff of ASU UNAB Cooperative, Felicia Omolara Alade, Kudira Tabola Nlekolawole, and Mrs. Shera Ajayi, as well as Biodun Nasiru. We had a very good working relationship. I'm mostly grateful to the past and present executive committee of ASU UNAB Cooperative Multipurpose Society for allowing me to tap and learn from their wealth of knowledge and experience when we were together. I cannot but acknowledge the encouragement from late Professor Bola Okuneye, the tutelage by Professor Obi Kende, all the encouragement, caution, and painstaking ways of checking information supplied, and the need to consider members' welfare as the first by Professor Bola Akeredoluale, and the present leadership, Professor A.M. Omemu, who continue on the path of the need to do things right and leave a better legacy. I'm immensely grateful to her and the husband, Pastor Omemu, for their support for the success of this inaugural lecture. I want to thank the publication committee, especially Mama, Professor Helen Bodunde, for all the effort to bring out the best in this inaugural. Thank you so much, man. I wish to express my gratitude to the ceremonial committee under the leadership of Professor Bakari. Thank you all. I'm grateful to God for the shepherds of the Church of God, where I worship, Reverend and Mrs. Eso Akeola of Victory Baptist Church, Obantoko, and Reverend and Mrs. Joseph Akebola of Victory Baptist Church, Aregbe. God bless your ministries. I want to especially thank God Almighty for divinely bringing into my life a woman of virtue, a valuable instrument in his vineyard as a wife, Mrs. Olubukola Omotayo Jayeola. The Lord that brought us together has been the light unto our feet and the perfecter of our imperfections. I'm grateful to you for accommodating my excesses and for holding forth while I traveled as a career research scientist. And to our children, Ifeoluwa Dolapo, a barrister and an aspiring solicitor of the Supreme Court. Ifeoluwa Gbolabo, a proud FUNAABite and an animal scientist. Ifeoluwa Seyifunmi, another proud FUNAABite and an aspiring food scientist. And Ifeoluwa Fikayomi, a future robotic engineer. I thank God for the blessings of these 4 jet engines as children. The purpose and will of the Lord for bringing you into my clan shall be fulfilled in the name of Jesus Christ. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I want to end this inaugural address by appreciating the Lord Almighty, the author and finisher of my faith, who gave me the grace even to get this far in life. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I want to say some words of songs to praise him, for he is worthy of it. Mi ò mọ̀dí tó fi fẹ́ràn mi. Mi ò mọ̀dí tó fi fẹ́ràn mi. Mi ò mọ̀ o, mi ò mọ̀ o, mi ò mọ̀ o. Mo ṣáà rí pé Jésù fẹ́ràn mi. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Please, you may be seated. You may be seated for the presentation. Present your lecture. That was good. Good. But please still stay. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause as he sips the water. Thank you very much, Prof, for the brilliant presentation of the 93rd Inaugural Lecture of our university. And it is my pleasure to present this award of honor to Professor Omotola Abiola Jayeola as the 93rd inaugural lecturer of the university, dated this day, Wednesday, 21st August, 2024. Congratulations, Prof. You know, in your lecture, you said we must strike a balance between consumption and conservation. We can't conserve everything, and we shouldn't consume everything. So on this campus, we've tried to do some production. And from the production activities, I want to present this to you. Congratulations. These are products from our campus. While at the same time we were conserving, we are also consuming. Thank you so very much. God bless you. Please, you may have your seat. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, congrats. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a worthwhile time listening to the 93rd inaugural lecture of our university, presented by Professor Omotola Abiola Jayeola. Before we leave, I know that the inaugural lecturer has acknowledged a lot of people, but it will be my pleasure to once again just welcome some people. For some of them, it's homecoming. For the others, they're joining us to witness this lecture, the 93rd inaugural lecture. Permit me to welcome, especially, Dr. Ibrahim Musa Guni, the Conservator General, Nigerian National Park Services in Abuja. You are welcome, sir. That's our Conservator General in this country. Thank you so very much. We also welcome Dr. Okediji Agbola Okeyoyin, the Assistant Conservator General, though retired now, of National Park Services in Abuja. Thank you, sir, Dr. Okeyoyin. And also, please join me to welcome one of those who labored so much for this university to be stabilized. I'm talking of Professor Chiedu Mafiana, the same half. Professor Chiedu Mafiana, former Deputy Executive Secretary of Nigerian National Universities Commission, and a one-time staff of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. We also welcome the mentor of our inaugural lecturer of today. That is Professor and Dr. Mrs. Samuel Onodeko, a retired professor of this university. You are welcome, sir. You are welcome, ma. Thank you so much. And of course, a one-time Deputy Vice Chancellor of our university, Bishop, Professor Adewale Roland Tunde Sholarin, A.R.T. Sholarin. You are welcome, my Lord Spiritual. It's also a delight to welcome Professor Deji Omole, an ASU activist and the chairman of the governing council, Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomoso. Professor Omole, you are welcome, sir. If you have been hearing Professor Deji Omole, this is him live and direct. Please join me to also welcome the former acting vice chancellor of our university, Professor Ololade Enikumeyin. Former acting vice chancellor, you are welcome, sir. The former DVC is also here. You know, I said it's homecoming. Retired but not tired. Professor Tony Arowolo, former Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic of FUNAAB. And one of those who took over from him, the former Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic also, Professor Christian Obiorando Buizi Keobi. You are welcome. Thank you very much. Also, with us is the former Deputy Vice Chancellor Development, Professor Clement Adeofun. Professor Adeofun, you are welcome. And, the inaugural lecturer is a conservationist, a wildlife expert, and he has brought wildlife experts to the university today. We have CP Karim Teslim Adeniyi of the Old National Park in Oyo. Old National Park, you are welcome, sir. We salute you. Professor Ibukun Ayodele, the immediate past president of Wildlife Society of Nigeria. You are welcome, sir, Prof. And also, Professor I.M. Ijoma, National Treasurer, Wildlife Society of Nigeria. You're also welcome, Professor Ijoma. The inaugural lecturer has also asked me to welcome specially Professor Adeniyi Olanyoju, former Vice Chancellor, Landmark University. And of course, another person who is having a good homecoming today is our own Baba, Professor Samuel Otubushi. Professor Otubushi, you are welcome. Thank you. Nice to see you, sir. And of course, we also want to appreciate and welcome the family of the inaugural lecturer, Mrs. Olubukola Omotayo Jayeola, and the children. We welcome you. We congratulate you. Thank you for taking care of him. Thank you so much. And of course, the immediate and extended family of Professor Jayeola. Of course, by the time you are going, you will see people in different shades of dresses. If you see them this way, those are the wildlife people. I wanted to say wildlife people. They are not wildlife people. Those are people from the zoological park. They're excited. And also, those from COLERM, also in uniform. I wonder who is the Ronaldo. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the 93rd inaugural lecture of our university, and it has been our pleasure welcoming you all. Thank you so very much for coming. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, a better applause for the Vice Chancellor, please. Thank you very much. May we all be seated. Yes. Whatever has got a beginning must surely have an end. We can't conserve everything, and we can't consume everything. So says FUNAAB's 93rd inaugural lecturer. We have come to the end of the 93rd inaugural lecture, the last of the series in the 2023-2024 academic session of this great citadel of learning. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please let's listen to the following announcements. The procession will file out in a reverse order through the central hall. Academic staff are to go through the exit A by my right-hand side. Non-teaching staff will go through the exit B by my left-hand side, while the inaugural lecturer's guests are to go through the central hall also after the procession. The students will remain in the gallery up there inside the hall. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may we all rise for the anthems. FUNAAB anthem followed by the national anthem. Thank you. national anthem, please.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hang on to our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed.
Please, let's wait for the procession to file out before we all file out after them. Thank you so much. We have come to the end of the 93rd inaugural lecture of this great citadel of learning, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, the best university of agriculture in Africa and the 7th best globally. The title of the lecture is The Tragedy of Consumption and Conservation, a Paradox of Community Emancipation. And it was delivered by no other person than a wildlife, ecology, and biodiversity conservation expert, Professor Omotola, Abiola, Jayeola, of the Department of Forestry and Wildlife Management, College of Environmental Resources Management, COLERM. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to recognize all the following dignitaries that have come from far and near. The Dr. Ibrahim Musagoni, the Conservator General, Nigeria National Park Service, Abuja. Dr. Abiola Okeyoyin, the Assistant Conservator General, retired, Nigeria National Park Service, Abuja. We have also Professor Samuel Anadekwa and wife, a former director of the Zoological Park of the university. We also have in this Halo chamber, Professor Chiedu Mafiana, former Deputy Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission. The former Acting Vice Chancellor of this great citadel of learning is there present, former Professor Ololade Enekome. All former DVCs, we recognize your presence. We have recognized the presence of the architect Kende Arulogun, the Mogaji of Arulogun family compound, Alafara Oje in Ibadan. We also recognize the presence of Professor Deji Omole, the chairman and pro-chancellor of Lagdoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomoso. I also like to recognize the presence of the former Dean of the College of Agricultural Management and Rural Development, Professor Adewale Dikpeolu. We also have the immediate past Dean, College of Environmental Resources Management, Professor Isaac Omoni. Please, let's give ourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we wish all a pleasant evening. Thank you.